Welcome to Key Conversations, where you get to connect with the best of the music business, unlocking the secrets to exploding your music career, presented by In the Key of Success. I'm your host, Cheryl B. Engelhardt. The conversations you're about to hear are between our special guest and participants of my MX4 course, the Marketing and Branding, Money-Making, Mentorship Mastermind for Musicians. They are singers, songwriters, composers, producers, and artists just like you, asking their burning questions of our experts while transforming their careers over 6 weeks. If you think this could be you, check out mx4course.com to schedule a free half-hour coaching call with me to see if we'd be a good fit. So, let's get started. Today I am really excited to introduce Sean Callery, who has been one of my musical inspirations for many years, and he is an Emmy-winning composer, two-time Emmy-winning composer. If you have ever turned on the television, you have heard his music, especially if you watch 24, Homeland, Bones, Medium, Minority Report, like every Elementary. Oh God, that's like my favorite theme song on the world right now. So welcome. Thank you for taking time out of your crazy schedule to be with us today.
You're welcome. It's nice to be. I've never done this before. It's really cool. It's very cool. Are you guys all over the place? Are you guys in New York or all over the country?
North Carolina here.
Cool.
I'm in California.
Oh, right. All right. Oh, wow. This is awesome.
Yeah, I'm in New York. And Sean you're in LA, right?
I am. Yeah, I'm in LA.
Everyone's got some questions for you. We've got some composers, very strong composer course this time around. Composers, producers, and also some songwriter artists types. Everyone's wearing a bunch of different hats and sort of doing a lot of cool things, but I thought that you'd be a good fit for this particular group because of the very strong interest in composing and placing music, and specifically for film and TV. So I was just going to kick it off and see, what sort of major events, maybe 3 events that got you to where you are today that you look back on fondly. What are those highlights? You
mean in terms of career path, you mean?
Yeah.
The first was probably getting hired to work as a keyboardist for Disney World. That was my first sort of professional gig out of college as a keyboardist. And then probably the second and biggest one was getting hired to work for this company called New England Digital, which was sort of the Pro Tools of the day, Avid. They made a sampler called the Synclavier, and the world was sort of going all digital in the 80s. And they were making a product, and they needed a technical support specialist. And I didn't know anything about tech, MIDI or anything like that really, but I kind of fudged my way into the company a bit and learned. And then it was there that I got to meet people working in the industry, whether it was Herbie Hancock or Chick Corea, who were doing more live work, or Pat Metheny, who was doing great work with the Synclavier, and then the film guys, Alan Silvestri, Mark Snow, James Newton Howard briefly. So I got to know these guys a little bit, but I had to work for the company for about 5-6 years, and then I needed a job as a sound effects editor. I needed a job when the company went down, and I was going to be the music director for Olivia Newton-John, but then she got sick. Anyway, long story short is I took a job as a sound effects editor for Star Trek, The Next Generation. You guys, people old enough to know that show? I'm pretty old now. So. But then it was on the heels of that I got to meet Mark Snow, who was doing X-Files. And then Mark took me under his wing as sort of a mentor. He'd known me from the Synclavier days doing customer support, and I began composing on shows for him, and then he helped me get my first series. That was really the flow chart. It's it's timing, luck, and being ready when the time is right. It's everyone has a different story. Jeff Beal has a different story. Michael Giacchino has a different story. It's kind of nuts.
Yeah, there are so many different stories, and that's part of what's really fun about all these interviews is just hearing, oh, that's possible. Oh, that way is possible. Oh, that way is possible. Oh, that way is it's not a cookie cutter for anybody really. So no. Really awesome. So I know we have a limited amount of time today, so I'm going to just dive right in with these guys' question. Casey, why don't you start? You got a question for Sean, I believe, or two or three or four. We'll start with one. We'll go around in a circle and come back, see how much time we have.
Okay. Thank you, Sean, for being on the call. We appreciate it.
Pleasure.
My question is just, what are some skills as a musician that are important for a strong composer to have like yourself?
That's a great question. I didn't enter music school as a composition major. I was a keyboardist. I would say if you're starting work in this industry, one thing that's very helpful, just speaking for me personally, is having a skill set, knowing what your particular unique skills and talents are that make you stand out. If you're a guitarist, if you're a pianist, if you're a singer, if you specialize in any kind of music writing or style. I was of a classical training, but I did a lot of jazz. I think I got hired. I think I learned the most shadowing a working composer. I just, there's just so much you learn, and that process of getting to know a composer, and one of the things that makes it the people I hire that I've hired. Or the way that Mark hired me was I brought something to the situation, whether it was a technical expertise about the particular equipment at the time that you're using, if you have an arranging skill, if you have the ability to use Sibelius to help anything to sort of help the composer's world that you're working for. It's kind of a natural thing to say, but when you're delivering and when you're available and when you have a good attitude, you're in their orbit, and then you get known by that person, then another person, and then eventually, Bear McCreary, another example. I think he was mentoring under, I forgot what his name was. It was somebody who originally got the Battlestar Galactica score, and then he couldn't do it, so they gave it to him, and he was loyal to this other composer, and so the loyal composer was very happy to endorse him to work on the series, and he was ready with his talent and what he knew he could do. And so the interpersonal relationships and having a skill set that would help a composer, and then the composer helps you. There's a reciprocity to that kind of arrangement, and it works out very well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So be awesome is what you're saying.
Well, be awesome. Well, let's put it this way: the people that I have, the people that became my assistants over the years, and I've only been doing it for like 10 or 12 years, I met them at events. I met them in sort of forums like these. I met them at ASCAP workshops, and they would reach out to me, and you have to be yourself. You can't sort of be artificial. I think that can be kind of detected, and not everyone's for everybody. I mean, you have a good connection with somebody, you bring them in. And I've had 3 assistants, and with each one of them, there was something that we appreciated about each other, and it made you want to cultivate their growth, and it inspired me as well. I continue to look for those kinds of relationships in and outside the studio.
Awesome.
And not to sound like Dr. Phil, but really that's kind of true.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right, Charisse, do you have any questions? I know you're on the phone.
Yeah. I saw that you have recorded with like an entire orchestra for film scores, which is just kind of like, since I was a little kid, I had this vision of myself being a conductor, and it's like evolved since into other things. But as a child, that was something that I always thought seemed pretty cool. So I just kind of wanted to hear about that experience, hearing your songs become that epic without the musicians performing it.
On the case of television, I work mostly in the television world, as most of you know. But television is increased. There are some networks and some production companies that really endorse live performances. A lot of times you are working on shows where you have to have your synth chops and your studio chops so sharp. There was a time when I began working where you could do kind of sketches and then kind of record it later and have people say, "Oh, I hear your sketch, let's go." And nowadays, producers of another generation, they just, when you play demos, when you play stuff, it's basically finished sort of product. So a lot of times, your work, at least for my path, a lot of the work I did, like for example on 24, I did a lot of orchestral-like textures and stuff using samplers, but that kind of produced an opportunity for doing more live on the show. And in the case of Bones last year, we did an entire like Bernard Herrmann episode featuring a live string orchestra, and then I conducted that with a college orchestra here. The process is wonderful. I mean, have you conducted before? Have you conducted your own work?
No, I haven't at all.
Well, it's it's tremendously exciting. I mean, the first time I ever did it, I was a little nervous because you do have to lead a group of people, and composers tend to have egos. Conductors can have egos. They also, by the way, they live the longest. I read this. Conductors have long lifespans because they're exercising and traveling, and they have egos, and I guess there's something healthy about that. But I learned how to conduct in college, but I didn't conduct orchestras. I conducted musical theater ensembles, and I practiced a lot. When you're right, there is an absolute skill set to it, where you have to trust the orchestra and have a connection with them as well. Short answer is that you do have to train a bit for it. Composers, players really appreciate it when you are very, aware of what you want to have done. I was a little tentative my first time on the podium, and do you know who Don Davis is, the composer of the Matrix movies? Don Davis is a really great conductor, and he actually gave me not a verbal spanking, but the next morning I was feeling kind of down. This was a Spanish orchestra, and I didn't feel I got everything I wanted out of them. It was only an hour and a half rehearsal, and he said, you got to take more control, man. He says, they're there for you. You start. You don't apologize for going over things 2 or 3 times. You want them to do. They hired you to come here. They have to perform. He was basically saying, take charge. Yeah. It was a very good instruction for me, because you can take charge without being a jerk. You can take charge without being an egomaniacal person. And anyway, I've done it a few times. I enjoy it very, very much, and it's a very exciting thing when it's all kind of gelling together. It's a lot of work, but it's great fun.
Awesome. Good question. Thanks, Therese. Therese, if you would just mute your phone, we're getting some background noise from wherever you are, but that was an awesome question.
What part of California are you calling from?
I think she's in Oakland.
Oakland, okay.
Oakland, yeah.
The reason why I asked is because you were talking about symphony or conducting. I'm seeing the LA Phil tonight conduct the Rite of Spring, so that'll be a fun night.
That's awesome. Very cool. All right, Moldover. You got something for Sean?
Yeah, I'm curious about awards, because like Emmy nominations and awards feature prominently in your bio, and I'm just curious like how that's helped you out, and then I guess also about like your path to that. I was wondering, if there's things that helped you win those awards. Basically, I know there's just doing tons of awesome work is a good place to start, but if there's I know like the Grammys solicit people to like join their whatever it's called. So yeah, I was wondering if you could talk about that.
I've received, I've gone to the Emmys 14 times. I've received 3 awards from them. So I know what it's like to hear your name called, and I do know what it's like to have your ass firmly in the seat for the entire 3 hours, not winning it. Awards are very, the quick answer to your question is, I don't have any anecdotal evidence to support that hiring a publicist, for example, or anything like that helps you win anything. I believe that our peer group in the Academy, in the Emmy Academy, they look at the work. They look at the work and they're voting on the work. I will say publicity or a publicist nowadays has sometimes really helped you, because there's so much information on the web, and there's so much, in the 24 days before social media didn't really start happening till 2004. And 24 was on the air for 3 years. And so by the time that happened, so when you went from the beginning of 24 to the end of the initial run to 2008, you had this point where in the beginning you were not interacting with any fans. And then by the end, you were having people like real time respond to what they thought of the episode. So it was really quite an adjustment. And there was so much interaction and so much noise, not bad noise, but just a lot of noise. So sometimes the publicist really helps bring a little bit of attention to your work. If you're particularly happy with something and there's something coming up, I do think that's great. But in the end, I've never ever reached out to a colleague and said, "Hey, vote for me on this thing." I was just lucky enough to get nominated on shows that that happened to be well made, and so receiving an Emmy Award for music means that the music mixer had to have done a really great job raising the levels of the music, and the dialogue was mixed well and stuff. Because if you can't hear the music, no one gets you don't get no one notices. So there's a lot of moving parts that go into even getting recognized. I don't belong to the Grammys. I don't belong to the Recording Academy, but I hear there's a lot of lobbying. I get a lot of emails from people, at least encouraging you to listen to music, and I think that's not a bad thing to do. My personal feeling in the peer group with the TV Academy is that they really, it's about the work. They look at the work. I was nominated for the main title of Homeland, and I lost to a British composer who wrote a really wonderful jazz theme. There's just no rhyme or reason. I have no idea how many people vote, and if people don't like you or like you, I have no idea. But it's fun. It's fun to win. I won't lie. It is fun to win, and there's a deflation when you lose or if you don't win. But I find it personally important not to be motivated in any way when I'm creating something by the possibility of, I might submit this for a nomination. Wouldn't it be great? The moment I start getting into any kind of, geez, this could maybe be an award-winning score, I'm getting away from the present work, if that makes any sense. I'm getting away from the moment of creation. Having said that, when you do get acknowledged by your peers, even a nomination, it's a lot of fun, and they have a party before the awards itself where you get to go, and no one knows who won, and you get to sort of meet and greet the people. That's actually my favorite part of the whole process, because everyone is it's a very collegiate, very, very peer group acknowledged, a peer group gathering, and everyone's in a great mood, and there's free booze.
That is awesome. Cool. And I also stand corrected that I said 2 when I introduced you. I knew it was 3. I don't know why I said 2. Casey, we'll come back to you. Second question.
My question is just, what is your composing process like? Kind of what is your routine when you sit down to write a score, whether it be for a film or for a television?
Do you, the straight, as a matter of fact, I moved rooms because I thought maybe there was a Wi-Fi issue, but I had a set of spotting notes I was going to hold up for you. But basically the first part of the process when you get any kind of picture for a show is you spot it. You look at it with the producers, and you read it, you look it down, and you decide, well, where will we put music? Sometimes the picture editor will put some placeholder music in there. And they might use other scores, or they'll use your scores and say, we kind of like the way this feels, but this performance wasn't so great. You type up a set of spotting notes, and that set of spotting notes tells you how many minutes of music you have to write for that particular episode. And then at that point, it's an issue of math. If you have a 20-minute score and you have 5 days to compose it, or 4 days, let's say it's 4 days to compose 20 minutes, I psychologically say, well, I at least have to clear 5 minutes a day. I have to compose and mix and have that. You have to sort of, and I try to do the hardest. If there's a big action cue or something that's emotionally or very complex, I try to get those things out of the way first, because if you cannot predict when you're going to have a creative block. So better to have that screw up. Better to have that block on the front end, and if you have a block on the tail end when you're doing more connective tissue cues or things that maybe might be as creatively as much of a thorn, then you can kind of breathe a little easier. And so once you compose it, I hire a mixer to come in and mix the music again, just because I like the idea of a fresh set of ears on it. And then we in the case of Homeland, we play back the score for the producers here at the house, and we play back the entire show in real time, which is not normally done much anymore. Normally you just play the cues you want to hear, just the parts of the show. In Minority Report, we send out QuickTime movies, so they review it and then they comment there. It's a mixed bag how reviewing by QuickTime movie, because you can't control the audio environment they're listening in. So sometimes you get really weird notes like, I can't hear this, I can't hear that, or this is weird, and this is there's more time spent when you play back in front of a client, But you can put out fires right on the spot. I've sometimes edited or replayed things in front of them. Anyway, once that happens, it goes to the mix stage, and then the music editor, who is sort of your wingman, he's sort of there to make sure the score plays properly, and he'll lobby for level raising and stuff. He's sort of your advocate. And then you take delivery of another episode and keep going. You know, in a film situation, you're working on a singular event, a singular picture, a singular project, and the issue there is picture cuts. They're always re-editing picture. They're re-editing and things like that. And so you're always redoing and reconforming and things of that nature. So films flow a little bit differently than TV. TV is more of a marathon, because if you're in a typical TV season, it can go 5-6 months at a time, pretty hardcore, and then you get kind of like a break. It is fun. I mean, I know maybe my circles are not very, they're coming across very pronounced this morning. So anyway, so go ahead. I'm sorry.
All right, I'm going to go back to Charisse if you have one more question for Sean.
Hi. Yeah, so you have a background in performance. That's what your education was in, right? Was in
classical piano. Yeah.
Okay, and then you just had like some conducting courses as part of that training?
That's true. Yeah, there was a little bit of. I took some arranging classes, and you had to conduct in front of small groups and stuff like that. Yeah.
Okay, so as I'm a singer-songwriter, and like I have a choir background, so I used to just practice conducting like my stuffed animals as a little kid based on what my choir director had been doing, but I've never been trained, and this is something I've always wondered, like, is there sort of like certification programs, or do you need to get an entire degree in that if you don't really have that background, like arrangement and conducting, if that was something I were going to pursue?
You know what's really interesting is I just got an email from a very great conductor named David Newman. I don't know. David Newman is the brother of Thomas brother or cousin of Thomas Newman, who conducts the LA Phil at the Hollywood Bowl in the summer. And I just got an email from him asking if there was any kind of interest in having sort of a conductor concentrated workshop in January. And that's a guy who really is used to, you know, now he's talking about conducting to actual film. What you saw on screen, if you saw anything of me on the web, was me in a concert performance sort of setting where you weren't synchronizing picture and orchestra, but synchronizing orchestra, live orchestra, and with picture with streamers and timings and so forth. That's a very high level skill set, and that I will readily confess I do not have a lot of experience with. I have done it, and I enjoy it very much because the entire orchestra is hearing a little bit of a click track, and they have the music, and they have to play things down like as if they've been playing it all their lives, even though they're playing it for the first time. And LA is really the best place in the planet to do that. I don't mean to be territorial, but I mean, I've just seen these guys and men and women, they just play, you just can't believe what they're doing. But I know of that as a workshop. I don't know if I would look into maybe USC or UCLA or any kind of music of Europe and Oakland. There has to be some extension division orchestra conducting. But I don't know of anything directly. The only thing I do know about was David Newman's query as to whether there would be any interest in it, and I am interested in it. I plan to. I want to follow up with him and be in it because I think he's such a great conductor, and the orchestra really likes him. There's so much to learn from him. But practice is the whole thing. I mean, everyone has their first time when they're conducting a large group that they've never done it before. You just have to you prep as much as you can, and then off you go. It's nerve-wracking, but it's again, it was real fun.
Awesome. I think that whether or not you need a degree in conducting to earn the orchestra's respect, I think, like Sean said, you just need to know the skills and have the skill set. And I think continuing education, I'm a huge fan, and you'll hear me talk about constantly bettering yourself. I mean, I knew that I had a couple holes in my own music education, one of them including orchestration. So I applied and took a few evening classes at Juilliard in orchestration. And that was just, I felt like I was getting a degree. I didn't walk away with any paperwork, nothing to say that I can't say I graduated or anything, but it was just the education. Now I have that language and that skill set. So I think, workshops and things like what you're talking, I mean, I'm interested in coming to LA for that, because that sounds amazing. The conducting with.
And it builds, I mean, look, it builds confidence. I mean, I don't care how successful you are. I mean, there are a lot of composers who don't like to conduct. I mean, there's a lot of composers who defer to others who because all they want when you're hearing back your score, and this is a good point. I mean, John Williams conducts, he's conducting right now, getting ready for the Star Wars release, but there are many conductors who like to be in the booth and really hear the music. They don't want to be at all dealing with the technical issues of conducting. They just want to be hearing the score as it's performing, so they have other people conduct for them, which is completely and totally viable. But I will say from a point of view of a concert setting, I did a couple of things last year. The TV Academy had its first TV music concert in 50 years, and I conducted music from 24 in elementary and this miniseries of Kennedys, and these guys were just great. It was a lot of fun. And you're right, you don't need a degree. You don't need a degree. You just need to. If you do it well, they don't care.
Yeah. Yeah, you have to learn how to do that somewhere, but that doesn't necessarily mean a degree. But yeah, cool. All right, Matt Moldover, last question.
What did the teddy bear play? Did the teddy bear play cello? Can you tell me about how the orchestra was laid out and the stuffed animals? I'm just curious. Who played the triangle?
I'm already picturing the stuffed animal orchestra. I love it.
I would love to see. I wish it was. I hope she'll tell us that there's a photo of her, in a raised posture and pointing at Winnie the Pooh or something. I just think that'd be great. Anyway,
Therese, you'll have to send that photo to me, and we'll send it to Sean if it exists, if such one exists. Awesome. Okay, Matt Moldover, question for Sean.
Yeah, I was gonna add for Cherise that I felt a lot more confident in my conducting when I got that like $5 baton and just had a thing to wave, and so I recommend that as a help. But questions for Sean would be. Is there a synclavier community in LA? And I was wondering if you ever met my dear friend Stephen Crows, who did a bunch of sound for Star Trek and was a synclavier guy.
I knew Stephen Crows I knew Stephen Crows very well back in the day. I took a lot of service calls from him. He was one of the pioneers. He was one of the big guns as far as I was concerned. So you know Steve.
I was gonna say we met 15 years ago in Boston, right when he just before he started working at Berklee College of Music and moved out there.
Yeah, he did some great work. The short answer to your question is there is a synclavier community. It's a smaller community. I still have a synclavier. I still have, what we do is the technology is 30 years old. The boards are 30 years old. It's probably older than you guys. And what it is, but what happens is it's a very small. As a matter of fact, it's funny. The phone has more memory and voices than the synclavier. The synclavier has like 32 voices and about 192 megabytes of RAM. But it has a unique sound to it that just makes it very special. It's kind of like a car that has a particular kind of ride that you still have modern technologies, but I still use the synclavier. It has a very unique sound. But it's a bit of a scavenger Mad Max world, because when the parts break down, we all kind of like band together like ships in the open seas and try to help one another service the machine. However, having said that, they just upgraded the synclavier software. They're actually still doing some redesigns to it to make it run a little bit better in the OS 11. The new so it can actually run. So. Anyway, it's if you see Steven, please tell him I said hello. I remember him very well.
All right. Well, Sean, that is our half an hour. I'm sure we could go on for another 7 half an hours. Can these guys follow up with you directly, and they'll just say, hey, we're on the call if they have more questions? Because I know everyone prepared at least 4 questions, so we've got more, so they might be able to shoot that too.
What did I answer too long? Did we not get to as many questions? Because I could take a couple more if you want. Are you good? Or I mean, I'm good if you want.
Well, I know Casey, you said you had 4. So throw out your last 2 questions, and let's see if Sean can do a laser round.
I'll be quick. I promise. Maybe I talked too much about it. Sorry.
My question was just as a composer, and you were talking about earlier, if you didn't exactly win the Emmy award or anything like that, you kind of have a down. But my question was kind of just like, as a composer, how do you stay motivated when you're kind of on an off season, or if you don't win an award? What keeps you motivated to keep writing as a composer? Because it's kind of tough sometimes. So
it is. It's a great question. It's a personal. I think everyone has their own little personal way of dealing with it. One of the benefits of working on a TV situation with deadlines is you have to deliver something. Like, sometimes when you are under some sort of obligation to deliver a score and you're having a terrible day, but it has to be in Sunday night for the stage Monday. Sometimes I just play, the first thing that happens is you got to leave this, you got to get up and walk away for a bit. You have to, no matter how much time pressure you're on. I don't know if it's exercise or just interacting with the world more. I find that even though you're behind impulsively, you don't feel like you want to do that. You want to just stay there and solve it, but you're kind of squeezing a handful of sand when you do that. You just keep, it isn't helpful. So shaking it off, going to exercise, I hate to say it, but it works every time when you go and do something aerobic of any kind. You come back, you're like, okay, I can get a fresh look at this. And then sometimes I just fast forward. Like, in other words, like you say to yourself, well, I'm kind of stuck here, but I know that I'm not going to not deliver something by Monday. In other words, I know it's going to get done. I know something will be out of the studio on Monday. I'm not there yet. But I know that I'm not going to not deliver. That's just something that you just can't not do. So you sort of trick yourself into saying, well, I'll just think of that Monday morning when I don't have to worry about it. And then but you just can't make yourself. Remember, when you're in a rut, it's just it involves trust. It involves having to trust yourself a little bit that what you're in right now is temporary. All human experience is transiting, when you're in good moods, bad moods, this and that. When there's pressure, it's a little bit harder, but you have to stir it up and get out of the studio briefly, or just shake up your world a little bit in order to sort of hit the reset button. Unfortunately, it's the only answer I could offer at the moment.
Cool, thank you.
I love that, like trusting your future self too. Like your Monday morning self is like looking to you right now to like step up.
Yeah, I mean, there's an episode of Homeland, and I have there's this cue that I have to do, and I don't know exactly how I'm going to execute it, but I know I have to play it back for the producer in about 4 days. So something will occur. I'm trusting that, and then when you go to compose, when you are there working, you're being present for your creativity is a requirement. And if you're blocked and you're frustrated and stuff, you have to acknowledge that. You have to acknowledge where you are when you're stuck. If you don't acknowledge it, then you'll plow through it, sometimes with harsher outcomes or bad habits.
Hey Sean, how can we find you on the internet? Or are you active at all on any social media platforms or followable on Twitter or anything like that?
I'm sorry to have to report that I am Twitter-less. I'm just not Twitter guy. I don't know why. I have Facebook, but it's a bit sporadic. And this new assistant of mine has redesigned the website. The website always has not generic, but it's the more accessible Sean at SeanCallery.com. But the one I gave you was the more direct one. So I'd say that if you announce, when you say who you are and say we spoke at Cheryl's go-to meeting, that'll remind me. But yeah, I mean, I got to get better at that. I'm sorry, I'm not doing as.
Just making sure that if there's somewhere to follow you in your career other than on Google, but we'll keep Googling you.
I guess my website's going to be more updated, but I'll probably get a little bit more savvy. Do you guys all have Twitter accounts? Is everyone Twittered? Yeah. Okay.
It is kind of.
I gotta get with it, man. I gotta get with it. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't think you have to. You apologize if you're out there winning Emmys and writing scores and getting the work. Then it's kind of, it's just another thing to do. But it does help.
Staying busy is a bit of a blessing. I'll tell you that. I don't think anybody, even guys like Mark Snow, who've been in the business for 40 years, I don't think they take for granted when they get a gig. Those are the guys that are lifers. They they have the right attitude. They don't think it's all going to. He's never presumed that he's going to get anything, and yet he keeps. He's just a very prolific writer, and his attitude has kept him. That's why he has an IMDb database of 400 entries. And God only knows how many hours of TV. Yeah, it's crazy. It's
wow.
Crazy.
Yeah.
He should speak to you guys. He is he has an even more beautiful take on the world at large. He would be an entertaining presence. I mean it.
You have tried to connect me to him before, and it has not yet. We'll do a take 2 on that one, I think.
We'll do a take 2.
So, well, Sean Callery, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom and insights and everything. This has been fantastic, and yeah, I can't thank you enough.
I thank you all. It was great questions, and I hope to hear from you at some point. It'd be nice.
Next week, stay tuned to listen to Suzanne Polinsky, the rock star advocate, talk to you about all things organization, getting motivated, and really kicking your butt into gear. Please don't forget to rate and comment on iTunes and Stitcher Radio if you like this podcast. It's the best way to keep it going, get more subscribers, and continue to share this awesome information with the indie music community. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. All of the music on this podcast has been created by yours truly. The theme song is called Inevitably, written with Cameron Ernst and produced by Joey Ock. You can find all the songs, plus more information on my music career at CherylBE.com. If you want to be one of the reasons I can keep this podcast and my blog Living on Gigging going, then head to patreon.com/CBEmusic. There, you can contribute $1, $2, $5 for the creation of each of these free musician resources. Together, we can keep them coming and inspire other creative people to do what they love and do it well. Again, that's patreon.com/CBEmusic. Key Conversations is sponsored in part by Bandzoogle. They make it easy to build a beautiful website for your music. Their step-by-step system gets you online in minutes, and you can choose from hundreds of mobile-friendly themes and customize them with their easy point-and-click editor. All the features you could possibly imagine for a professional website are built in. So, because you are a Key Conversations podcast listener, you get a special 3-month free trial just for you. Go to www.inthekeyofsuccess.com/resources and click on the Bandzoogle logo to access your free extended trial.